Hello, hello, hello. My name is Afrikan King Academy. Back again with another episode of Park Ferme. This is the F1 show where we talk everything F1 after every single Formula One race. Now, this weekend was the Dutch Grand Prix. It was a sprint race weekend. There was a lot of things to talk about that happened throughout the weekend. Obviously, it's the last race in Zandvoort. Yeah, man, overall it was a good weekend. I think I am happy that it was the last weekend in that track because I feel like for the new regulations, the track what didn't suit the new regulations in terms of being able to have races and able to have spirited competition, I think, between the drivers, in my personal opinion. And yeah, man, I think sprint race weekend, I expected a bit more, overtakes, a bit more changes of position. The race was a lot better than the actual sprint, but we're going to go through it all. We're going to start with the sprint quali. Obviously, she started off the weekend off hot. Let me get the right one. This one? Yes, let's go. So, sprint qualification started off hot. Now, it was weird. Mercedes didn't really have the speed in the first two qualifying sessions. So if you look at sprint quali 1, it was the Ferraris and the McLarens that were up there, and then you had the second bunch, and then you obviously had the rest. Same with sprint quali 2. It was mostly McLaren Ferraris that were up there in terms of pace. But out of nowhere for sprint qualifying 3, George Russell got the lap in. And the difference between the top 4 was under 100th of a second. So it was very close. It was very tight. It was one of those moments where anything could have happened. I was a bit disappointed with Kimi in terms of the sprint qualifying. I think he has the machinery to compete with George and should be higher up. It was also very disappointing qualifying for Lewis Hamilton. I think there should be no reason why he is in that position. And it cost him. It cost him in the sprint itself. Because I think the sprint itself, the Ferrari showed that they did have a lot of race pace. As you can tell, Charles ended up starting in third, finishing second. And it showed that the Ferrari was competitive in terms of the soft tires. The rest of the front runners were on mediums, except for Charles, who was on the softs, and it worked out for him. He was able to pass Lando Norris towards the end of that sprint race to get second, and you could see in the mediums that Hamilton wasn't having a good whale of a time stuck behind Max Verstappen, and I feel like when it comes to Ferrari, our qualifying dictates what our sprint race or race is gonna be, and it shows. The qualifying is really important, very very important. Um, Congratulations to Gasly to get in the last point, but it's the usual competitors you see. Obviously, unfortunately for the race weekend, not Sonoda, Hadjar was injured, so Liam Lawson took him over for the Red Bull place, and Yuki Tsunoda was in the Racing Bulls. So big up to Yuki, man. He showed up. He had a really good weekend overall, for me, considering obviously he hasn't really raced in these new regulations, and he was getting quicker all across the weekend. So if there's a team that needs Yuki in the future, I think he'll be a good driver going forward. Definitely, definitely, definitely. But yeah, the sprint, very comfortable. Not many overtakes. A couple of decent moves. I think Ferrari did the right strategy of putting Charles in on the soft tires, and I think it helped him out in that essence in terms of the shorter period of racing. But yeah, it showed that the McLaren Mercedes were the dominant race cars in terms of the overall race place, but the Ferraris can compete when necessary when it came to the sprint race. And this led on to what happened within terms of the qualifying itself as well. So quali 1, it started off okay. For Lewis Hamilton, he was second up there with Oscar Piastri. The McLaren seemed to be the quickest car on the tracks in terms of the qualifying. Qualifying 2, it was pretty much similar recordings. Then you saw Max Verstappen come out of nowhere, putting in a good lap in Q2. Q3 was a weird one because towards the end there was a bit of rain, so it was pretty much who could get the first lap in quick enough to in order for them to get the pole position, and Lando Norris did enough just to pip George Russell and get into the right conditions in order for him to get the best lap for qualifying. Ferrari did really bad in this case, and so did Red Bull. As you can see, it was a McLaren, Mercedes, McLaren, and two Ferraris, fifth and sixth. And just like in the sprint qualifying, the lower you finished in the sprint qualifying affected where you finished in the sprint race. As you can see, Lewis had a bad qualifying, had a bad race. That was the effect, especially with this type of track where there was very few. For Spa, this is positive. For Spa, this is positive. Yeah, this is a positive for Spa. I think Spa is going to be a much more racier track. But because Zandvoort is so narrow, not a lot of overtaking places, very hard to overtake, it meant that the qualifying in this weekend was important, was imperative to where you finish. And it showed, as you can see, the ones that finished high in the qualifying had the better races. And then the race itself, for me, was the best thing of the weekend. The best thing of this weekend was the race itself. Now, it started off with a little bit of rain, a little bit of trickery, which led to the crashing of Max Verstappen. More money coming in for fans. Yeah, man. 100%. Max crashes out early. In the first couple laps. And it was all and once one of the top drivers crashes out the way he did. Also, big up to who else was it? Bortoletto, who had a spin, I think, as well, and he just survived. So big him up, man. He had a little spin himself. Oh, brilliant, brilliant. Also, reactions from Hulkenberg, who ended up getting points as well, because those reactions saved him the race. To be honest, one race in the region is enough. Yeah, yeah, I think yeah, definitely. And for me, once that happened, it kind of, kind of slowed down, bogged down the race. But then once it started going again, it was very interesting to see what was happening. For me, personally, I feel like the Ferraris and Hamilton was let down. I think there was a middle period where he was slowed down by Charles Leclerc, who's on the slower tires. He should have let him through. Maybe you would have seen the possibility of Hamilton getting a third place, because I think towards the end he was catching, but it wasn't enough time to fully catch George Russell. And I think those couple of laps where he was bogged down behind Charles cost him a podium today. Big up to Mercedes for getting a double podium once again, second and third, and Lando Norris getting a win finally after a very troubled season so far for McLaren. It was good to see Lando Norris get a win, so a different driver get a win. Overall, it doesn't really make too much bigger difference in terms of the grand scheme of things. Lando Norris moves ahead of Charles in terms of the driver standing, but it shows that the McLaren does have the pace in the right conditions. Piastri had some issues during the race, so he wasn't as quick. But also I do believe he will leave McLaren towards the end of the season. So I don't know if he has himself fully into kind of wanting to be a part of McLaren going forward. Big up to Fernando Alonso for getting points in the Aston Martin. I think it's like some of their first points this season, if I maybe correct myself. Let me check the standings. Yeah, that was his third point. So Aston Martin have 3 points. You got 2 plus 1. So hey, big up, big up, big up. So I feel like it was a good race for Fernando Alonso. Hulkenberg with his quick reactions early on led him to get his points as well. Gasly obviously finishes the last bit of the points. Big up to Yuki Tsunoda, who finished above his teammate in the racing balls. It was good to see him back. As I said, throughout the weekend, he got quicker and quicker and quicker as the weekend kind of went on. But overall, it was a Mercedes weekend in terms of engine. Mercedes, McLaren were the two quickest cars over the course of the weekend. George Russell winning the sprint race, Lando Norris winning the main race, and getting himself fourth position in terms of the driver standings. Now, overall, with Formula One being back, this being the second half of the season, in terms of the driver standings, Kimi Antonelli was able to kind of increase his gap to the rest of the drivers. He has now got around about a 57-point gap between him and joint second place of George Russell and Lewis Hamilton. Wait, what? Oh, that's crazy. But yeah, obviously Lando Norris leapfrogs Charles Leclerc for the first time. So he's starting to go up there. Max in 6th, Oscar Piastri, who I think has been very disappointing in 7th. In Conference League and Europa League, they might get away with it. Oh, fair enough. CO seems like it. Kim needed justice. Russell ruined it. Yeah, kind of. I feel like maybe George probably could have moved out the way for Kimi a lot earlier in terms of the final stint, but I don't think there was enough laps left in the race for Kimi to catch up to Lando Norris. So I don't think the change of position in the end made much sense. Ideally, I think it would have been better for George to be ahead of Kimi, but they did still get the double podium in the end of the day. So McLaren got Mercedes got what they needed. Oh, they're winning 3-1 in the final round. Hey, big them up. But anyway, in the grand scheme of things, it's a shame that Max in his final home race crashed out. It's an unfortunate that happened. I think that is the wrong way you want to go. Lama, how the fuck F1? I got exactly the same cap on right now. Hey, big up, man. Hey, it's a great cap, man. I think it was from like one of their collections, the white, when they did the white stuff. Because I even got the white shirt basically. I got a Milan shirt on, Italia, all that. But no, I got the white shirt that came with it as well. But I haven't the white shirt that came with it as well. Big up to you, Isaac. But yeah, disappointing weekend for Ferrari overall. I feel like Ferrari were not at the races in the qualifying that led them to have a lot of issues when it came to the main race. In the sprint race, Leclerc had good qualifying, meant that he was able to have a good race, was on the soft tires, was able to kind of get away for a capo boy. But in the main race, and it's shown throughout the season that if you have a bad qualifying, there is not many places you can overtake, and it's very difficult to overtake when all these cars are very similar in terms of overall race pace. In order for you to be able to overtake, you need to have an overspeed. Now, throughout the race, there was points where there was overspeed because for example, Lewis Hamilton lasted longer on the first set of tires, meaning he had the tire offset and was able to zoom. But because Leclerc got in the way, he wasn't able to capitalize in terms of the race overall and get that podium position that could have possibly been his. As you can see in terms of the final standings, it's only zero point 0.8 away. So those couple laps and those couple misjudgments of Leclerc not being a good teammate and moving out the way cost Hamilton from getting a podium place and getting a 3 extra points, which can mean everything in terms of the actual team standings, with Ferrari in second place at the moment, but McLaren look to be on a resurgence towards the second half of the season. So every point counts, and I think Mercedes are without doubt going to be number one. I think Kimi is winning the drivers' championship. I think Ferrari's, unfortunately, they're fighting for second, both in the drivers and the team standings, with Lewis Hamilton and with the team as well. So I feel like with Charles, he should have got out the way of Lewis, because you're stopping him from getting extra points in the race with George. As you can see, he's now on the same points, 183, where he could have been still 3 points ahead of him if that was the case. And I think there needs to be a conversation had between the two drivers, because right now it seems that, for me, that in this second half of the season, Hamilton needs to be the priority driver when it comes to Ferrari, Kimi for Mercedes, and it's looking like Lando for McLaren. So you know who your number one drivers are based on the drivers' standings by now. And last season it was Leclerc. This season it's Hamilton. Hamilton has been the better driver for Ferrari. He's got the win. He's got the points. The aim should be to try and get him as high as possible. And there shouldn't be no backchat from Leclerc in regards to, if you're in a different strategy from the other driver, move out the way, because you cost him precious points when it comes to the drivers' championship and when it comes to the team championship. Now, as I said, it's looking like it's going to be a Mercedes year. I think it's going to be a Kimi year, and I think he's going to be one of the youngest world champions and it's going to be great, to be honest with you. Kimi, the Italian. I love an Italian team, but big up to my Italian brother Kimi Antonelli. I think he is a special talent. He's proven it. I think he's shown that he is capable of not only competing with George, but being better than George Russell. And I feel like he has the mental fortitude to do what Oscar Piastri couldn't last season and get the job done. I think that's the difference maker. You can see that he is the one. Question saying Kane to win Ballon d'Or. I don't know. Me personally, I wouldn't give it to him, but if they give it to him, it is what it is. But yeah. Right now it's looking like it's going to be a Mercedes year. Ferrari need to pattern themselves up in terms of understanding who their number one driver is. It's Lewis Hamilton for the rest of the season, and try and get him as much points as possible, and try and make a couple changes to the car going forward and into the next season, because we need to really bridge the gap between us and Mercedes. McLaren looks like they've been doing that, and it's looking like that we're stagnant at the moment, and we still have similar, very similar issues that we've had from the start of the season. So going forward, need a lot more work to be done in the background, and it's going to be a very interesting end of the kind of European leg of the tour. Obviously, this is the Dutch Grand Prix. We move very closely on to the next races. We go next into Italy, which is the home of Ferrari. So we need to have a good race and a good weekend in Italia. Then you go for the rest of Europe, Spain, Azerbaijan, move over to Bahrain, Singapore, and then you come towards the final straight of the season. But the next race, I think they need to do everything in their power to make sure that we win, or come close to winning. Yeah, I mean they definitely have. But I'll talk about that on a later date or on another show maybe going forward. But yeah, I think when it comes to Formula One, when it comes to Mercedes, I'm happy for Kimi. I think he was one of the bright sparks. It I am annoyed that Hadjar had to miss this race weekend. I hope he's ready and well prepared for the next one because I think he's a bright young driver as well. And for me personally, I feel like going forward, he's gonna be a top driver, for Red Bull. And you can tell that he's able to not only keep up with Max, but be able to get that Red Bull where it needs to be. But yeah, current standings. Driver standings, as you can see, Kimi leading the way, George Russell, Hamilton on the same points, then Lando, Max, Oscar, Hadjar, Liam Lawson, in the Racing Bulls, Gasly in terms of Alpine, the best of the rest, Racing Bulls, Lindblad, and then the rest. And big up to Alonso for getting 2 more points. Yeah, and in terms of the races for the driver standings, the biggest races between Racing Bulls and Alpine. Every point is counting between them two. Haas and Audi are also fighting for that seventh spot, and Ferrari and McLaren are going to start to become very much close in terms of that second place finish towards the end of the season as the McLaren continues to improve and get these more positive results. But yeah, that's all I gotta say. This ain't a very long video. I will be back later to watch some football. I am watching the Carabao Cup. Uh, it's gonna be a fun one. I think it's Nottingham Forest versus Leeds, if I do say so myself. So that should be a fun game going forward. Yeah, that should be a fun game. And then tomorrow will be the earlier show with Kickoff Michael. It will be earlier on Wednesday. So tomorrow 6 p.m. on my channel, King and Kickoff show. And then after the double watch along, Real Madrid, Real Sociedad, Leon Fenerbahce, La Liga Champions League watch along. And then there'll be a period of time where I won't be able to do any streams or anything. I will send out a post detailing why. Um but yeah, in the grand scheme of things, I hope everyone is good. Good day, good afternoon, good night. Big up to Natasha, big up to MT, big up to Ansar, big up to HS Renaf, big up, man. Big up to Isaac as well. Appreciate you coming along. I will continue to be doing Formula One content. I will do the qualifyings, the races, sprint weekends, all of that stuff, and talking about it in a lot more detail across the season. And I'm excited for Italy, man. I'm excited for Monza. I'm excited for the home of speed. And yeah, man, the next one is going to be a fun one. But yeah, it's looking like Mercedes on top. Ferrari got to fix up, and McLaren getting a decent win as well. Peace and love. I'm out. Peace.